maybe we should talk about that briefly. So Momi tweeted out, "This year so many frauds qualified for Capcom Cup. If you made it the first time in the easiest way, please don't feel entitled unless you show otherwise on tournament day." Right? And Soundboy responded with, "From interactions with folk, this is an opinion held by a chunk of players but don't want to say it publicly. Momi has always been honest about how he feels. I don't think it's bad that regions get representation, but sad that some of the world's top players don't get the opportunity." It's a really interesting take on the situation, and I've discussed this plenty of times as well. It's basically the idea that, do you want to have qualified players be just the best players in the world? And like, really think about that for a second. Did we ever have a situation where only the best players in the world qualified for Capcom Cup? If you think about it, then that was never really true. What happened was we had tournaments set out in the entire world, and basically out of the top players who were able to travel a lot, those were the players qualifying for Capcom Cup. So it's always been a challenge trying to get only the best players at Capcom Cup, because most players, and this is really the case, like, no one can really challenge that. A normal player, even if you're like one of the best players in the world, simply cannot afford to go to a bunch of tournaments, to go to 10 CPT tournaments all around the world to qualify for Capcom Cup. This has always been a problem. So what ended up happening is, essentially the sponsored players got to qualify for Capcom Cup because they were the ones able to travel the most, right? So you could argue, well, only the strongest players get sponsorships, and that is true, but you basically have established players, and even if you're like a new player, like let's say Ending Walker, right? Ending Walker qualified through the World Warrior events. Are you telling me that Ending Walker shouldn't be at Capcom Cup, and that he somehow had an easy path there? I mean, we all know, like, he won UFA in France, right? So we know that he already showed that he can absolutely beat the best players in the world at an offline event. It's not a problem. But then I don't understand what the issue is with, well, some of the best players in the world don't get to qualify because of this new system. It's technically correct, but they all have a chance to qualify. Like, saying that they don't get the opportunity to qualify, maybe I misunderstand his statement there, but there's no way you can ever argue that some players are not getting the chance to qualify. It's exactly the opposite. I think it should be a mix, more CPT premier events offline. I agree. I actually think that, like, here's a take that I've heard at Street Fighter League. I had discussions, maybe I shouldn't disclose who I had discussions with, but I definitely had discussions with players saying that it's kind of bad to have the World Warrior events, because the way it is set up, it ends up making it so that some local players from somewhere in the world will qualify for Capcom Cup, but they are not really ready for the biggest stage, and they are just gonna get smoked by the elite players, essentially, right? And I just don't think that's... I can kind of see the argument, but at the same time, I don't think that matters that much compared to what the benefits are for the current system. What did Ending Walker disprove my point? Which point? Oh wow, I messed up the crosscut. Let's imagine, like, for example, Problem X did not qualify for Capcom Cup this year, right? And that's because he ended up losing to Ending Walker in the World Warrior events, right? And even Shax at the end. I think in the finals, he didn't even make it to Grand Finals, right? But he did make it to top 3, right? I think that's what happened. Maybe I should concentrate on beating Alex Leather first. The stream is low FPS from time to time. It's not the stream, actually. It is the gameplay. It is actually not low FPS. It's the FPS is the frame pacing is wrong, and I can't fix the issue. I've spent days trying to figure out what is causing the problem. It is most of the time it's actually 60 FPS. Sometimes it is different because the frame pacing is bad. But yeah, it's an issue that I would like to fix for sure. Wake up back throw, okay. I did a reversal. I did the parry, but too early. I think the current system is just the last effect of COVID. I don't think the system will stay. I really wonder what's gonna happen. Like, for example, Redis from Salt Mine League feels very strongly about the World Warrior events. I have criticized the system before, you know? I think there is a real downside to it, but there are many upsides to that as well. It really elevates local... Like, for example, we had the most amount of signups in Germany through the World Warrior events out of any of the World Warrior events, at least the ones that Salt Mine handled. It really shows to me that the current system is really good at making, like, getting the local players to engage in the community and to actually get better. You strengthen the community through that system. So if the argument is, well, you have someone who's like from a region that isn't considered very strong, but now there's a Capcom Cup spot there to take, that's a real motivation for that scene to get better, because everyone wants that spot. And like, for example, like, I qualified for Capcom Cup, right? But it's not like it was a free win because of my region. I mean, we do have Reinhardt, the most notable player in the region, and he wasn't able to qualify, right? So, wow. What? That did not reach? Uh-oh. Yeah, and like it not only bumps the baseline skill level of the community. Like one thing that you really have to keep in mind, if you keep up that system for many different years, then eventually you'll end up in a system where the World Warrior players are gonna perform just fine at an event like Capcom Cup. I mean, it's hard to say, it's hard to make predictions right now. Oh wow, that was good. That was amazing. I also don't see like how this is a big deal. We have like the group phases for Capcom Cup, and actually Capcom Cup is running for an entire week now, which I don't think anyone should be complaining about. So if, let's say, the established players are on a different level, they'll be the ones ending up in the final bracket for the top 16 anyways, right? So the finals for the Capcom Cup is still going to be the same when it comes to the, let's say, the competitive integrity, if we want to really call that. But even like, as I said, you could really argue the old system. I mean, it's not like it enhanced, like, it didn't do a good job making it interesting for players around the world, because you need to have the money to travel. If you don't have the money to travel, that's it, you're done, right? Unless you have, well, regions with World Warrior events. That way, it actually makes sense for you to practice and stay sharp. You might still end up qualifying for Capcom Cup. And if we take a look at, I think this is the one of the comments that were made earlier, that my point about Ending Walker. I mean, he basically replaced Problem X as the top dog in the UK, at least for the qualification spot. Or, in fact, you could actually say, like, I mean, Forfils won the UK Premier event, not Problem. The Problem X did make it to Grand Finals there. And the World Warrior events, essentially the person gatekeeping was Ending Walker for Problem. That was, but let's imagine a world where we only have offline qualifiers. Okay? Let's try to imagine what world does, like, what does that look like? And you'll realize, oh wow. Give me a second. You'll realize it's not the better player who would have qualified for Capcom Cup, it's the sponsored player who would have qualified, and that is Problem X. Ending Walker would have no chance. There's no way Ending Walker would be going to a lot of the offline events from really far away. It's just not going to happen. So Problem X would have qualified for Capcom Cup, and let's be real, the better player, which is this season, no doubt, at least in my mind, is Ending Walker, would not have qualified under the old system. So you can think of the World Warrior events like what you want. You can make out of it what you want. Definitely has downsides, and I've talked about these downsides as well. But what you cannot argue is that it enhances the competitive. Oh wow. It enhances the competitive integrity of the CPT overall, because we do have a definitive example where that is not the case. That is simply not the case. I totally agree. I think the players are just upset that everything was regional. If you give the players, for example, 18 spots through premier events and 30 regional ones, then there will be less criticism. Actually, I think there will be a lot of criticism unless you have most of the spots be premier spots that you have to travel to. I mean, it is what it is, but at the end of the day, the strong regions, for example, they did get... I'll have to look it up, to be honest, but for example, Japan had more spots, or let's say like the Asian region. Let me look it up. How many spots where are there for Japan? So there is only one Japan. How many premier events? At least on the website, it seems like there is only one World Warrior for Japan, right? I guess that makes sense. So it is a different region there. UK had its own thing, UK and Ireland, right? But we had multiple people qualify for. Let me just try to figure out how did people qualify, and how many. Like we have, for example, Momochi from Japan qualified. Kawano through Evo. Okay, so that was not really a Japanese spot. So let's not really count that. But I mean, technically you could argue, there you go. If you have most of the players, let's say, in Japan, that was a spot that you could take right there. And that's exactly what happened. So Kawano, Momochi, yeah, so only 2 Japanese players. Are these the only representatives for Japan? Pugera. So there was a World Warrior event, a Premier event, and Evo. Those are like the only 3 ways Japan was able to qualify, right? So yeah, I mean, if you consider how many strong players in Japan, like how many players there are, you could really like that's one of the downsides. That's the downside, because you have a more of a spread for Capcom Cup. It ends up putting it so that one region cannot have an insane amount of participants qualifying. You can also do 24 premier events and 24 regional ones. I think the old system is too much linked to travel, and the new system locks people out. I guess so. I guess you could find a better mix. Yeah. Oh, Alex Leather to get started. Let's go. Let's go. That's the perfect match to warm up, you know? If you can't beat Alex Leather, if you can't beat him, you know you're not warmed up. Because this is the perfect way to see, am I gonna be on point today or not? I actually did get a lot of sleep and very happy about that. But, I mean, he's a legend. Yeah, he's a legend for a good reason. Oh wow, that was amazing. Yeah, he beat NL rank 2-0. The legend. Absolutely godlike. Oh wow! Okay. He actually gave me that tire just for the parry. I guess he was tired. Oh. First match of the day, and as expected, it's a tough one, you know. Fight. Oh wow! I didn't get the crosscut. Unbelievable. Round 2. Fight. Let's go. Final round. Fight. Jeszcze jest CPT. Alex Leda, my personal hero, I gotta say.